You're listening to the Why That Work podcast presented by StoryBrand.ai. If you've ever wondered why certain brands, trends, or cultural phenomena find success while others don't, you're in the right place. Every week we unpack why something worked, then give you actionable insights that you can use in your own life. Now let's dive in with your hosts, Donald Miller and Kyle Reed.
Welcome back to the Why That Worked podcast, episode 6, February 10th, if you're listening to us in real time. And I thought no better topic to talk about because it's Valentine's Day week.
Valentine's Day. Now, I have to point out that that's the first time you've said Valentine's Day
correctly,
since we started doing this. You're a Valentine's guy.
I didn't realize it until you called me out. But I think I just...
You didn't realize it?
No, I had
Nobody
no
has ever called you out.
I just say it so fast that I kind of get through it, but I had no idea I was saying it.
You know whose fault this is?
Whose?
Your second grade teacher.
Probably so. Well, interesting enough, in second grade, my dad chose to move me to homeschooling, so it's my dad's fault.
So it's your dad's fault.
Everything comes back to your dad, right?
He wanted it to be Valentine's Day, and he didn't want,
and no one corrected
you didn't
him.
want the government institution of
my
school to teach you correctly.
My mom would always say, put it in the washer machine.
Washer.
So Indiana, very Midwest. So Valentine's Day, there's something there with that.
Yeah, the washing machine, but also Walmart instead of Walmart.
I don't say that, thankfully.
Yeah, we had Kmart and Walmart.
Kmart?
And Walmart.
Yeah, that's good. Well, there you go. A little bit more. The more you know about us, the better, right?
Here's a question for you.
Yeah.
What percentage of marriage proposals take place on Valentine's Day, or as you say, Valentine's Day?
Oh my goodness. So not to offend every person listening to this who has proposed on Valentine's Day.
Be careful.
But is that like on the level of like proposing at a stadium on the Jumbotron? Like
it's pretty
cheesiness?
Cheesy. It is.
What's
My
the
wife
stat?
told me she knew we were going to get engaged.
Yeah.
You know, I sought permission from her father,
Yeah.
all that kind of stuff. And all she told me was, if I'm on a Jumbotron, the answer is no. She wanted to be quiet.
Did you surprise her?
No.
I
wanted. I listened to my wife. When she says don't do this, I don't do it.
So what's the number? How many?
10%.
10% people propose.
10%. 6 million couples a year get married on Valentine's Day.
Engaged.
Get engaged on Valentine's Day. Is that surprising to you?
Yes and no. Makes a lot of sense.
Not very high.
It's kind of a layup for most people of like the natural like progression is I'm going to propose on Valentine's Day. Christmas has got to be like right behind that too. You know?
Really think Christmas is a big one?
Yeah. People, they go home. It's this whole thing.
Wow.
You know, I think Christmas would be right behind that, maybe higher. But
that's interesting. I just didn't think it would be. It feels cliche to me.
Oh, totally.
It feels like if you're getting engaged on Valentine's Day, are we gonna get in trouble for this? I just feel like it lacks creativity.
Yes, because there's some guy out there right now
awful?
going, that's what he was planning this week, and we might have just shattered his entire plan. You go for it, man. Go for it. Make
Absolutely.
Join the 10%.
Because who the heck are we?
That's right.
To tell you what to do in your love life.
That's right. I started with a Jumbotron plan, and
did you really?
No.
Were you gonna?
No, I didn't. I knew I was well enough. I knew well enough to go there. Though
how long did you get engaged?
Let's see, 11 years ago.
Well, so you and I are the same.
Yeah.
I mean, I've been married 11 years, so you to be.
Well, I'm coming up on year 11 of marriage, so I guess 12 years ago.
We're exactly the same.
Wow.
Yeah.
In so many ways.
And so was there how'd you do the engagement though?
I wanted to surprise my wife. I liked that. And so we had some friends, you know them, the Whitakers, Carlos Whitaker. Yeah. So his wife Heather was big and like she'd throw these like elaborate parties and fun things. So I used that as my guise of like, Heather's throwing this party in a park and we're invited and we need to just bring a bottle of wine and we're going to go to this park. And so we're driving to the park.
Yeah.
And when we pulled up, I had rented out this like camp space and it was all set up. And that's how I surprised her.
Were there a bunch of people there?
No, just me and her and a friend of mine.
But a friend of yours set up like okay, gotcha.
Yeah,
hiding in the bushes.
And interesting enough, Heather actually helped set it up. So she was
and she said yes, and the rest is history.
She said yes, and then we went back to I flew all of her family in to surprise her.
Very good.
Yeah. So it worked out.
Very good for you.
Thank you.
I did we were in D.C. Betsy was living in D.C. and I chased her to D.C. And so I took her to dinner at the Kennedy Center. Mm-hmm. You ever done dinner at the Kennedy Center?
No.
There's a restaurant up there with shag carpet. Oh. Like, I don't think since Kennedy was killed, John F. Kennedy was killed, they've changed a thing. Like, I don't think they've moved any art or it's literally like bright orange, red shag carpet.
What does it smell like in there?
It smells like 100 years of old people.
Okay. Yeah.
I mean,
That's a good smell.
there's little, like, there's busks of presidents and things. And so we did dinner. I'd never scouted it, so I didn't know. And it wasn't the most romantic thing. And then we started walking around that beautiful balcony, and it just doesn't feel right, And my wife turns and says, "Oh, I love that sculpture." There was a sculpture of John Kennedy's head, and pre-assassination, because it's just cleaner. But there's a sculpture of his head, and my wife says, "Is it too soon?" My wife says, "That's my favorite sculpture." And I remembered Plan B was to go to the Einstein sculpture on the Capitol Mall, and it was the same sculptor who'd done it. He has a very specific style. And my wife, that's her favorite sculpture in D.C. And I'm like, okay, Plan B. We're going with Plan B because this doesn't feel right. There's too many people around. We get in the black car. They take us over to the sculpture, and there's people all over Einstein. And I'm like, dadgummit. Like, there's a bunch of kids. Oh. She doesn't want it to be. And not only that, the sprinklers are on the sidewalk getting to the sculpture. So we're going to get soaking wet. We're going to get there as a bunch of people. And I literally, the true story, Kyle, I pray. I said, God, I got to do this now. And I got to do it at that sculpture. You got to help me. And we're getting out of the car, open the car. She gets up. The sprinklers literally die. And every single person, probably, not exaggerating, probably 8 people walk away. And the sprinklers die immediately. We walk on the sidewalk, and there's nobody there. And I get it down on one knee. She says yes. I stand up. I give her a hug. And like 6 or 8 people just walk up.
They come
and
right
they have
back.
no idea what just happened. Wow. And my wife got her little personal thing, her personal moment. So we got married at that sculpture.
You're romantic.
We got engaged at that sculpture.
Yeah. Wow.
I'm strategic.
Yeah.
I hope I'm romantic, but I knew, like, it's got to be special. It's got to be memorable. We got to be able to drive by it someday and go,
that's good.
Your mom
like
and dad.
Yeah.
Like, I can't wait to take Emmeline there when she's old enough.
My natural reaction would be like, look at all this I planned for you. I got them to turn the sprinkler,
But the fact that the sprinklers died and
amazing.
Everybody walked away.
That's amazing.
I was like, God
it's almost
help me.
like God said, okay, I've got to do this for him to
That's
make
exactly
him
it.
do this.
That's exactly it. Well, not just that, but like, the boy's an idiot.
Yeah.
He literally wanted to do this at a public park, and he thought he would have a private moment. I got to help this boy out because he's never going to get married.
Which is like,
this is not how you make babies.
Perfectly ties into Valentine's Day because
today's episode,
30 minutes later, us stupid men need a day.
Yeah, nothing like
to remind us to celebrate.
2 guys
love.
on a podcast explaining the ways of love is going to be a hit.
It will be, I think. Now, here's what I found about this day, Saint Valentine. What did you?
Not to be confused with Saint Valentine, who invented the clock.
Great guy
for the Catholic Church. You had a big.
That's pretty good.
Remember Flava Flav?
Yes,
this saint had a big clock around his neck. That's where
Flava
Flav got it.
That was almost as good as your JFK little joke. You
guys better not cut that.
No, we won't.
By the way, the listeners should know they neuter me every episode. I rightly deserve to be canceled every time we turn the microphones on, and I get neutered to save their jobs. They could care less about my reputation. They want to keep their jobs, so they neuter me.
It's strategic.
Don't take the Kennedy head, bit off. Don't take the Kennedy head bit off.
Send your letters to Donald Miller at StoryBrand.com.
I'm at 3. Yeah, just put 3 on the envelope. It'll get to me.
So here's what I found fascinating about this day. The history is interesting, and we could talk about that for a little bit.
Yeah.
But what was more interesting, for me at least, of why this day works, because I'm not even going to say what it's called anymore because you make fun of me. This day on February 14th works. To some point, it made it across to America, and it became commercialized really quickly.
Well, but we got to go back to Roman times because it was kind of a pagan sex holiday. Lupercalia, if that's how it's pronounced.
Sounds right.
Cooper? Oh, he got it. We're getting a thumbs up.
He has to say yes.
But it was sort of a pagan sex thing, celebrated in mid-February. The pagan festival honored fertility and the coming of spring, featuring rituals that included the clean version, the pairing of couples.
Yeah, it's a great way to start.
And the Christians came along and made it family-friendly.
Thank you. As they do. Safe for the whole family.
Those pesky Christians came along, to which we are all grateful, by the way. The last thing we need is a bunch of debauchery in the streets.
It's true.
Yeah. But now, is that what you got when you looked into it? That's kind of the
early
history
on,
of it?
the story at St. Valentine, and there's some, I think, conflicting stories about, there was a story about him helping a couple in jail. There's also a story about he sent a letter to a love interest and signed it, "Your Valentine." So there's some different things there. Depending on what source you go for.
History. I've heard there's been lots of St. Valentines.
Yeah. Okay.
The story that I heard was that he was one of the St. Valentines, or whatever he was at the time, was secretly marrying Roman soldiers because they weren't allowed to get married, and so he was marrying them on the side. And that's why he was executed.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, that's why the Romans executed him.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Like that was 400 or 500 is what I read.
I don't know. I don't know the date. 5th century.
5th century. Okay.
Yeah.
That sounds better.
It was under Pope Gelasius.
There we go. 496 AD.
Is when he was killed?
Yes.
Yeah.
They declared February 14th.
It's a great way.
Valentine's
if you want to be
Day.
famous for a really long time, just make sure the Romans kill you. If you really want to be famous, come back from the dead a few days later. That's a good
plot.
It's a good way.
It's a great way to.
It's a good way to get name recognition. That and be the son of God.
Yeah, that helps. And then,
or be a virgin and be pregnant. That's another one. Great tactic. Talk about building a brand. Building a brand with God.
I can tell you cold plunge this morning.
I got a lot of dopamine going through my veins.
It's working.
Ooh, that's an episode. Cold plunging. We got to do it.
Write it down, buddy.
Okay, so Valentine's Day.
Yes, let's get back to the subject.
So, but you're saying that the reason, though, that it's here, which is always comes to this on this podcast.
Yes.
The ability for people to make a living. It's not the money that I'm talking about. Everything that we talk about is always like, okay, but how are people getting rich off of it? Because that is the number one telltale sign that something's going to take off. And it's not about the money. It's about the ability to provide a living for you and your family off of this thing.
Yes.
And Valentine's Day has done that. Did you get some stats?
Yeah, I did. And, we've worked on an episode about Michelin stars upcoming. And in that episode, we kind of hinted around the same thing where they created this system to get people out driving on their tires, right?
It was about selling more tires.
One of the things I found, so Richard Cadbury, that name sounds familiar, right?
Are you kidding? Is he the egg guy?
1860, created the first heart-shaped box of chocolates.
Bam.
And tied it to Valentine's Day.
Ka-ching.
Well, what's interesting is I'm always very fascinated about these people who see a problem in the market of going, how do we get more people to think about us? And then they strategically walk away and come up with a strategy to get them to think about that. Yeah. The other thing I found interesting was to kind of go through history, even the way that they use Hollywood, kind of in the late 80s, early 90s of like movies like You Got Mail, Sleepless in Seattle. They kind of they really played up this idea of Valentine's Day being a massive day of grand gesture of love. Right. And it's like fascinating to watch that go.
So we would have to say the monetization of it, but also the existence of love, period. I really want to do an episode on why that worked on monogamy. I think it would be fascinating to do an episode on monogamy. And to get into all of the structures of how love between two humans works is both in a Darwinian sense and also a spiritual sense. But you would have to say that love is something that people want. Expressions of love is something that people want, especially women. Did you know that 60% of the roses bought on Valentine's Day are bought by women? Would you have predicted that?
Well, no, but now
a bunch of deadbeat dudes is what that tells you.
That even moves into the rise. Like Galentine's Day was a whole other spinoff of it, right?
Yep.
So that's interesting.
If you don't communicate clearly, all your emails, your website, social media posts, everything you're communicating will be ignored. StoryBrand.ai is like the world's best communication expert writing it for you. Imagine having the world's best communicator writing your tagline. Just type in the name of your company, answer a few prompts, and voila. Hey, that's a good one. Use it to write your social media posts, website wireframe, emails, lead generating PDF, product or service descriptions, anything you need for your business. What would happen to your revenue if every word that left your business was crystal clear and worth paying attention to? StoryBrand.ai is your competitive advantage, so you'll say it clearly. Try it right now and let us write your custom tagline for free at StoryBrand.ai. And now back to the show.
250 million roses are purchased on Valentine's Day.
Real.
It is absolutely unreal.
That's so many.
The flower market in Amsterdam. Did you know this about the flower market? If like I lived in Oregon, there was a tulip farm near us, and they made tons of tulips. If I went to Whole Foods and bought tulips, those tulips likely went from that farm physically to Amsterdam and back to the Whole Foods down the street. There's a physical flower market in Amsterdam that it's a giant rotating stage, and hundreds of guys sit there with computers and they look at these flowers and they bid on them and they buy them for their various distribution networks, and then they get distributed all over the world. And so can you imagine the influx of flowers at that market around Valentine's Day in the 3 weeks before Valentine's? It's like Christmas for them.
Yeah, that makes their whole quarter, right?
Yep, 250 million roses.
No, I did not know
is
that.
Astronomical. $2 billion worth of candy and chocolate are sold specifically for Valentine's Day. Okay, just guess how many Valentine's Day cards are exchanged in the United States.
This is where you're going to... This reminds me of the
population of 330 million, but that includes children.
I'm going to look dumb here. 300.
I think you're going to get it pretty close.
That's so much pressure. I say Valentine's Day, so
much fewer Valentine's Day cards.
There's a market there. We need to work.
There's a market for children.
I don't know. 800 million.
There's 330 million people. They're each buying like 3 cards?
Well, I'm thinking like kids' classes. They could buy multiple. Okay, 200 million.
You just ruin everything.
I know.
145 million. Wow, that many?
That's like when you walk home and your wife's like, guess what I did today? And you're like, there's no right way to answer this question. I'm going to just shoot high and hope that she doesn't hate me for my... Yeah, okay, say it again. How many?
145 million.
Okay, so that's interesting. Here's the
By the way,
thing. 30
million people will dine out. 30 million couples will dine out.
Yeah, massive. You better book your reservations for Valentine's Day right now.
Valentine's Day is an easier ticket.
Here's something I found. I don't know if you came across this, and I found it fascinating. The rise of the Industrial Revolution and the connection to Valentine's Day.
I did not see anything about that in my extended research. I.e. conversation with Cooper walking here down the hallway.
Right. That moment when we industrialized everything and we started to commercialize things was really when Valentine's Day took off.
And I imagine a lot of other things.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah. But it took the factory worker and gave them a day, but it also, the factory process of all the stats you just read helped bring that industrial into a massive business for Hallmark, Cadbury, the flower, the tulip shop in Portland, Oregon. The rise of the Industrial Revolution was a massive inflection in this holiday.
Well, it probably turned a lot of things into sort of processes and monetization. And by the way, this is not a knock on that. I love the fact, if you want something really wholesome and good to take off in the world, figure out how to monetize it. Figure out how other people can make a living doing it, and that will rise. And so I love Valentine's Day. I've got a wife who I'm crazy about. I've married way out of my league. And now I've got a daughter whose heart has just taken over my life. And so I love the formal expression of this sort of thing. It is a complicated, there's some pushback. Did you get into that at all?
No, what's the pushback?
Well, I mean, think about it. If you're a woman and you're single and this happens to be a year that you don't have anybody, you're not going to go, oh, I'm really sad. You're going to go, this holiday sucks, right? And so there's a pushback against the sort of Valentine's Day. But I think most of that is resentment about the personal situation somebody is in.
Why do you think that is? Why is that such a tough day for some?
Well, I mean, if there was a day on the calendar when it was a given to express how much you respect men and you were ignored that day, that would be tough. That would be really tough. And I think a woman's heart is designed, by the way, to be adored. I really do.
Yeah.
And I'm going to get mail on this, but I just do.
Yeah,
I think
I
they're
agree.
different. And I think they're designed to be adored. And I think when a woman's heart is not adored, I think something is broken in the system, and it is an injustice.
Yeah.
It's somebody not getting food. And by the way, if you adore a woman in an appropriate, respectful way, watch her flourish.
Yeah.
Just watch.
That's right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so that's one of the reasons I really love. I actually like this holiday because it gives you a formal reason to actually do it and
Love
to sit
that.
down and take it seriously, especially guys if you have daughters.
Yeah.
Like your wife is really important, but teach daughters that their heart was designed to be adored, and a good man will notice, and she's going to end up with a better husband someday because all this riffraff she's going to kick to the curb appropriately.
Yes, as a dad of daughters as well, I love that. I think that's a great reminder. It's funny too, as kind of the dumb male in me of just like, you kind of sometimes need like the reminders to cherish that.
Yeah.
You kind of need those markers on the calendar to remind you like, hey, when was the last time I took my wife on a date or told her, I loved her, all those things. Sometimes we need those reminders, and I'm with you.
Well,
I
think
lean
about
into
the difference between, we should do a Mother's Day episode. Think about the difference between Mother's Day and Father's Day and how much money is spent on Mother's Day versus Father's Day. It's because the male heart isn't designed to be, it doesn't need it as much. It does need respect, and it needs, I think that's a true idea that men are designed to be respected and women are designed to be loved in general.
Yeah.
Of course, every woman needs to be respected. Every man needs to be
yes.
loved. But I think that's the difference. And so, there's these holidays that have taken off because supply and demand.
Yeah.
There is a demand
Yeah.
for the woman's heart to be adored, and
I
it's
see where you're going.
it's taken off.
It works.
It works because there's a
it's human
demand,
nature.
and
Yeah,
there was
yeah,
an opportunity for people to monetize it.
It's good.
And they did monetize it.
Well,
and
there's also
I'm
feels
glad, I guess.
like moments of life where we need markers, in our life to kind of just, again, go back to that being reminded of looking forward to something. I look forward to our anniversary, or I look forward to Father's Day. I look forward to birthday. You kind of have moments where you need to break up some of that monotony of life.
Yeah.
To be reminded of like, this is a chance for me on, any given day to express something and go above and beyond, or have a nice dinner, or celebrate the idea of your relationship and love.
Yeah.
And I think, the commercialization, you could go down that path and go, oh, it's just, greeting card companies making a lot of money and, all the flowers and this and that. But there's something special about it.
We would be amiss to wrap up this episode. And it is two guys talking about Valentine's Day, so it should probably be short.
We are very aware of that. Again, send your hate mail to Donald Miller
at 3.
At 3.
What are your tips to guys and dads? I've got one. It's just super simple.
Yeah.
It's actually super simple. It's very, very difficult for guys to pull off, but I've got one.
Well, I think the one that comes to mind right away was something you'd mentioned in your proposal story, and that is pay attention. I think a movement of attention is far more bigger than a piece of jewelry you can buy.
That's exactly it.
And so finding some way, just listen. There's going to be moments.
This does not have to cost you a lot of money.
No. And any just paying attention and just being proactive in the sense of taking some charge of that moment.
Yeah.
I'm always tempted, the Enneagram 2 in me is to go, where do you want to go to dinner tonight? And whatever she decides, I'm good with. But, again, paying attention to go, I'm going to put a plan together because I'm going to be intentional.
Yes. I would say that's it. The biggest gift that you could give your wife, your daughter, is the actual premeditated attention to honoring them. And one of the best, look, if I went down to like King Jewelers here in Nashville and spent $1,500 on some earrings, brought them home for Valentine's Day, or 90 minutes sitting down with a piece of paper and a pen and thoughtfully explaining what a gift you've been to me, my wife she could care less about now, she's not very material. I'm the materialistic guy in our relationship. She's not materialistic at all. So the jewelry is not going to mean anything to her. But that letter would mean the world.
Yeah.
And so I try to do that. But the other thing is, like, imagine your daughters with, your daughters are kind of that right age now, I mean, and so imagine them having a little, you get them a little pink shoebox of some sort, and every year there's a date on top of a Valentine's Day letter from dad. You are doing more to set her up with a great husband, because that's what she's going to look for. She's going to look for somebody who's thoughtful and intentional and who adores her. That letter is not just a Valentine's Day letter. It's development.
Yeah.
It's development, and it's part of protection and provision. You're providing for her heart, and you're protecting her from the yahoos that she's going to show no interest in. If there's a vacuum in her heart, it's going to be probably filled with junk food, in the version of that version of a man. And so I think actually just sitting down, and it's really hard for guys to do this. Now I'm going to do something that is going to turn every woman off.
Great lead.
I think you can go to StoryBrand.ai or Perplexity or
true.
whatever.
Yeah.
You can say, here's the way, here's everything that I feel about my wife. Here's every reason I'm grateful. And actually sit there and do the work and type it and say, hey, will you write me a short letter? And it will spit out, because guys aren't writers, and this is very important. It needs to be clear. And sit there and read it and go, okay, I would change this, I would change this. In other words, edit it rather than write it. And then rewrite it, put it on a piece of paper, sign it. You work just as hard as you would have. And by the way, if you would have written it yourself, it would have been not very well written.
No, that's a great idea. You've done that in the past, where you've even said, like, hey,
I'll sit there and do some work.
Someone sent me a question or a letter, and I don't really know how to respond. I'm going to use that's an actually like really positive way of using AI to help you clarify something and work through that.
AI is shockingly good at relationships.
Yeah,
Did I tell you a story where AI corrected me in a way that I didn't ask it to?
No.
Okay, so my wife had something happen with a person that we worked with, a vendor that we worked with, and there was a little bit of a strain in the relationship. And so my wife actually bought a gift and sent it to her with a note saying, hey, so sorry for the tension. Just know we really appreciate you and respect you. And I thought, that was a pretty cool move. Well, somebody emailed me, a friend emailed me, and she had offended a big socialite in her area.
Okay.
And so it's too long of a story, but not that big a deal. But she just emailed me and said, hey, how would you handle this? And I thought, oh, well, my wife bought this gift for this person and sent a nice note. And I thought, well, buy her a gift. And so I said to my wife, I'm going to tell, this woman to buy a gift like you did, because that seemed to work really well. And my wife said, no, don't do that. That's a completely different situation. This woman is wrong to have done this to your friend, and you do not buy her a gift. It makes you look weak. And I roll my eyes and I'm like, nah, it worked too well. So I go to AI, true story. I go to artificial intelligence and I say, will you help me come up with what to write on the card to go with the gift? Here's the situation my friend has found herself in. Here's how she was wronged. Here's how, whatever. AI came back and said, don't buy a gift. I didn't ask it. I said, write me the card.
And it
said, don't buy the gift.
Are you sure Betsy's not in control of AI?
I think she might be.
Sounds like
I think she might be.
She's the founder.
Yeah. So you can actually go to AI and say, hey, I'm a dumb dude. I'm not very good at speaking my heart. And here's everything that I feel. Now the hard work is actually sitting down and putting on a piece of paper and handing it to them.
Oh yeah.
And it's a vulnerable moment, and it's going to make you extremely uncomfortable. That's the gift.
Yes. Yeah.
That's it. That's the gift.
The earliest part of my life where I saw this in action was, I remember I was like maybe 7 or 8, and my grandpa and grandma lived on a college campus, and my grandpa was the printer. And so this is back in the day where they printed everything, right? Mm-hmm. So he's a printer, and my grandma was a secretary. She worked inside of the admissions office. I remember I would love in the summer to go hang with my grandpa, but for some reason I was there around Valentine's Day, and I was with him, hanging, helping him print stuff, just doing all the things. And he handed me a bag of those awesome, I like them, those little hearts, those little candy hearts.
With the
sayings
words
on
them?
Yeah. I think they taste good. Hint to my wife. And he handed them to me, said, hey, go give these to your grandma with a card. That was one of my earliest memories of those like, and now I think about it, I'm like, oh, it's like kind of lame, but she loved it so much. And it was that simple act of just, I'm paying attention.
Yes.
And that stuck with me
see you.
to today.
Yeah.
Of just that little moment of seeing that. And that kind of like this conversation, yes, is two men trying to talk about Valentine's Day and being loving.
You have to give, now the women who are listening to this are rolling their eyes and absolutely loving it. Right? Because they're armchair experts on love, two guys. They're interested in that.
But I think it wraps to a bigger thing of the word I'm walking away with is intentionality in relationships.
There you go.
That's really what we're circling around. We can talk. We're using Valentine's Day to talk about this.
Yeah.
The reality is when we think about relationships that are deeper, friends, colleagues, spouses, kids. What I'm walking away with, even hearing from you, with your daughter, with your wife, is I want to be more intentional.
Yeah.
I want to find ways to pursue them and love them and care for them and nurture their heart.
Gratitude. Express gratitude. I am not me without you.
So why does Valentine's Day work?
Valentine's Day works because the two main reasons are there's a need, it meets a need in the human heart, especially a female heart, not just females, but especially a woman's heart, to be rightly adored. I really believe that. I believe they're supposed to be adored, and I think they know it. Right? I mean, how many times have you, even 11 years into a marriage, my wife will, say something or do something, and I look up at her, and it's like the first time I've ever seen her. Now, I'm not saying this happens often. I'm not like a mushy romantic guy. But I'm like, holy crap. That woman is gorgeous. Right?
Yeah.
She's designed for that. Guys are not designed for that. Guys are just trucks. It's like you can use it to move a lawnmower around. It's very useful. And I will argue that till I die. Men are useful, so stop knocking us.
That doesn't bother me. I like it.
So I think that's reason number one. And reason number two, millions of people could make a living off the monetization of this expression on a specific day.
Yeah.
Right? How much money does the Hallmark store make? Right? And because of that, it's sustainable and it grew.
Yeah.
And then the myths about, some saint somewhere. The reason nobody knows about that, guys, because it's not actually that important.
They found that story
wasn't
somewhere.
necessary to make it work. Those are my two reasons. You got anything different? Or
no, I think that's great.
Yeah.
I think that wraps up really well why this day is important, but also
Happy Valentine's Day.
Thank you.
Happy Valentine's Day.
I'm working on that card. Just you wait.
For me?
Yeah, sure.
Well, I want the little candies. There's nothing that really says I didn't think about you more than a heart-shaped box of candy. I thought about you while I was getting some Rolaids at CVS.
Well,
and I want to tell you this right now. I want to tell you right now. I would accept that from you.
That's fair.
A heart-shaped box of chocolates.
I'll take any candy you want to give me.
Yeah, because I'll put them all in a bowl and heat them up in the microwave and put some peanut butter on top, and those candies taste just as good as anything else.
Perfect, because men are trucks and we're very simple
Put
people.
on some football.
Yeah. Well, happy Valentine's Day to everyone listening to this. Hope you enjoyed this.
And happy Valentine's Day, a lesser-known holiday that takes
for
place
all
in
the
August.
For the 10 people out there who celebrate Valentine's Day.
All of you are.
Big day for us.
Yeah, 8 years old and under. God bless everybody.
Thanks for listening to the Why That Worked podcast presented by StoryBrand.ai. If you like the show, follow wherever you get your podcasts. And if you're enjoying this on YouTube, hit that subscribe button and leave a comment letting us know what you think and what you want the guys to talk about in a future episode. Curious about how StoryBrand.ai can help you create clear, effective messaging? Well, you can try it out right now and create a free customized tagline for your business. Just go to StoryBrand.ai. Thanks for listening, and we'll see you next time.